Welcome to Divisionalysis. I'm Fog. Now, I know you're going to hate me, but the St. Elmo's engine has to be nerfed. Let me explain why. Let's go. Now, I love this weapon because it has combined everything that I have been speaking about in my videos into one weapon, and now it becomes irrefutable, some of the things that I've been telling you, and at the same time it's combined everything that I've been telling you about damage into one weapon, and so has to be nerfed. Let's start with weapon handling. So if you haven't seen my other videos on weapon handling, I'm going to walk you through the process, but it may be a little bit quick. I suggest you go back and watch those other ones. But first thing I do is I try to establish a pattern of recoil for the weapon. And immediately I noticed that there was an issue with this Elmos. What you've got is an irregular weapon pattern compared to the other weapons, which have predictable lines of recoil. The Elmos has a varied pattern. I've done this for every single assault rifle, and what you can see here is a grouping of patterns of the Elmos, and here's one compared to another, and you can see that there is in fact quite a degree of variance in some cases. We can get a line of best fit, but even then it's not incredibly accurate. Now, because I have done this for every single assault rifle, when seeing it on the Elmos, I instantly recognized it from another weapon that I'd already tested with an irregular recoil pattern. That weapon was the Bighorn. Believe it or not, the Elmos and the Bighorn share a very similar pattern for recoil. That similarity is in the variation. Here's the Elmos, and what you can see is that there is a number of kicks that occur during the process. And this is exactly the same with the Bighorn. It has a natural rise pattern, but at intervals during that pattern, it will take a jump to the outside of its accuracy bubble. And this is also the case with the Elmos. So what occurs is inside that accuracy bubble, a string of hits occurs, then there's a kick, string of hits, kick, string of hits. But why is it the Elmos doesn't feel like the Bighorn to shoot? Well, the Elmos has a 20% weapon handling benefit, but that's on top of whatever its base stats were. And if we compare it to some of the other assault rifles, what you can see is that the Elmos, for combination of accuracy and stability, there is no other weapon that compares. There are some that compare for stability, and there are some that compare for accuracy, but even the most accurate weapons, the Honey Badger, the M4, have a lower accuracy. The only one that matches it, and actually slightly exceeds it, is the Rail Splitter, which has a 50% boost to its base accuracy. And when we talk about accuracy, we're talking about this little dot that floats around. It's a random coordinate generator. It floats around inside what I've termed an accuracy probability cloud. The extremities of that is determined by the attribute on your weapon, which is accuracy. But rounds on target is a combination of stability, the attribute accuracy, and the recoil pattern. And as we already know, the recoil pattern being unpredictable for the Elmos lets it down. So I've shown this before, but what I do is I take those accuracy bubbles, or those probability clouds for all of the bullets in the magazine. I then plot, in the case of the Elmos, a number of tracks that it could possibly take, and then I produce what I believe would be the most logical mouse track to compensate for that. I then align those bubbles onto a matrix which is scaled in accordance with the stability of the weapon. When all of those are laid down, you get a probability cloud of where the bullets that you aim are going to land. And when we encompass all of them, the Elmos has a total accuracy somewhere around about the glory days or the invisible hand. But when you plot where 95% of those rounds are going to go within that cloud, and then you go one step further to work out where the majority of those bullets are going to land, what you end up with is a Elmos rifle that has an accuracy and stability and recoil pattern that allows it to get rounds on target with the equivalent effect of the CTAR or the F2000. To round out weapon handling, we have reloads, and in my last video I went through all the assault rifle reload times, and for a from empty reload, the Elmos was coming in at 1.5 seconds. You can see the first round as it left the barrel. And then I did timings for all of the tactical reloads, or reloads from not empty, which every assault rifle will see a shorter time than what they do from empty. And in the case of the Elmos, that time is 1.4 seconds. And when compared to all of the other rifles, reloading from empty, it's tied for number 2, and for tac reloading, it's tied for number 2. So you have a weapon that is as easy to handle and as accurate as the CTAR or the F2000, and has a reload speed equivalent to the fastest in the game. Let's move to everybody's favourite thing, damage. The Elmos. Let's compare it to the FAMAS. Now, it's a good comparison because they both have the same base weapon damage. As you can see, 106.1, which is in fact on this build, 44.191 multiplied by 140% is 106,059. And if you were to do the basic burst DPS calculation, 106,059 times 850 rounds per minute, 900 in the case of the FAMAS, you would get 90 million per minute for the Elmos and 95 million for the FAMAS, or 1.5 million per second, or 1.59 million per second, and you would be forgiven for thinking that the FAMAS has a 6% better burst DPS than the Elmos. But you would be wrong. The FAMAS is running with 3 5% critical hit chance mods to get it to where it needs to be, or the most optimal setup. The Elmos has a 20% crit chance mod and a 20% crit damage mod. Now, I've said this a number of times, you need to take into consideration the weapon attachments in order to get an accurate reflection of how the weapon ranks. There's a number of reasons why I run my test build, but one of those reasons is that it allows for setups for every weapon type and when it comes time to compare across all of them, and it allows me exchange crit chance, crit damage, as I see fit to get an optimal setup and give the best chance for 3 slot weapons to be able to achieve the best results. In the case of a 4 slot weapon, that setup results in a 59-153 for the most optimal setup on this build. In the case of a 3-slot weapon, that drops down to 54%. So we exchange a crit damage mod on the build for a crit chance, and that gives us 60% crit chance and 141% crit damage. But now we have the St. Elmo's engine with its ridiculous attachments. And we have to find the optimal setup. Starting at 6161, if we drop the crit chance from the chest and exchange it for crit damage, we get 6173. We can in fact exchange the Seska piece for Grupo, and that gives us perfectly 1 crit chance mod away from crit cap. And now we are at 6176. Quite a difference from 59,153. This was the original calculation that we did without taking those mods into consideration, and when you do that, you get 278,745 as an average bullet damage for the FAMAS using in-game stats, and 303,352 for the St. Elmos. Times 850 and 900 rounds respectively gives us 257 million versus 250 million for the FAMAS, which means that the St. Elmos has a 3% higher burst DPS than the FAMAS. And you would be forgiven for thinking that that's okay because the FAMAS can put a damage talent on the weapon and it's going to be better than the St. Elmos. And I've heard content creators say this, and you would be wrong. The St. Elmos and the FAMAS. Here is a scale representation of the difference in those damage per seconds. Now, I've mentioned a number of times why burst DPS is the most ridiculous metrics we have. This is a scale representation of how long each of those weapons can sustain that DPS for. Duration of damage, or what I've termed in another video as being the burst bubble for the weapon. How fast you can kill an enemy has so little to do with gameplay. It is how much you can kill. And in the case of the St. Elmos versus the FAMAS, here is a scale representation of the average NPC health for heroic and checkpoints. Heroic missions and checkpoints. Here is 2 average NPCs, and as you can see, the FAMAS is incapable of taking down both NPCs on this build. Obviously, if you've got more damage, it scales accordingly. The St. Elmos will always do this percentage more damage. Here is an elite, scaled accordingly. The St. Elmos can take down 2 elites. The FAMAS has no chance of doing that. That means that the St. Elmos will reload half the time of the FAMAS. Whilst the St. Elmos is killing 2 elites with 1 magazine, the FAMAS has killed 1 elite, then had to reload, and then kill another elite. Once again, all to scale per time, including the new burst reload timings. And this difference in time is 31%. There is no weapon talent in this game that will come within 3 sheep stations of getting you the amount of damage that you need to make up for that deficit. Not to mention, the St. Elmos has a better optimal range than the FAMAS, and it also reloads faster. If only there was somebody who had been talking about duration of damage, frequency of damage. Anyway, what you have now is a weapon which is as easy to control and as accurate as the F2000 or the CTAR. It has the second fastest reload average times in the game for assault rifles. It has a burst bubble or a total mag damage equivalent to an Eagle Bearer or an AKM. It has the highest burst DPS. It has the highest burst firing DPS, and it has the highest sustained DPS, and it's not even close. There is no other assault rifle to be using, and it is for that reason that something about the weapon needs to be nerfed. Oh yeah, by the way, it shocks shit too. That's it from me. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Crack on using this in Elmos. If you're using anything else, then you're probably doing it wrong. If you enjoyed the breakdown, give it a like. If you want to see more in-depth, accurate analysis, then subscribe. But I will see you in the next one. Log out.